Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. Of course, brought to you on the Fighters First Network, fightersfirst.shop. Get all your latest and greatest combat sports inspired streetwear. Of course, I'm Mike Ginn, and I can't do this show alone. Joining me as always, I'm talking about professional kickboxer, the mechanic, Brandon Cuttino. Brandon, what's up, buddy?
It's Wednesday, man. Time to talk some fights with you.
Talk some fights, but I heard we got some special announcement to kick off the show.
Oh, yeah. You guys are sleeping. You guys haven't been paying attention. December 11th, Allentown, Pennsylvania. The mechanic's going to be back in the ring. I'm going up against Javon Davis. It's actually a person who actually fought as an amateur. The judges gave it to him that night, so me and him are going to run it back as pros this time. But I'm not planning on letting it go to the judges this time.
That's awesome, man. Great to see you back in the ring. But there's also more news.
Yes. Before that, though,
the mechanic is being busy all of a sudden.
Exactly. Before that, though, November 20th, UWA Elite Last Breath. I'm gonna be doing some more wrestling with them again. Somebody called me out. You know me, I gotta answer the challenge. So it looks like on November 20th, somebody is gonna get chin checked once again. And then the following month, December 11th, somebody will get chin checked as well.
And don't worry, people at home, it's not me. He ducked me again. So don't worry. I did not get the contract in the mail in Tampa. Maybe it got lost. I don't know. Something about Brandon not wanting to catch weight. He's scared. It's fine. But now we're super excited to see you back in both rings. It's always a good time to see you in UWA. But then also getting back to your day job, kicking ass in the kickboxing ring. So we're looking forward to that. Definitely. And then, of course, today we got a ton to talk about. Last week was a big week, starting off with PFL right after our show. We went pretty well at those predictions. We were a little up and down in the UFC predictions for the Blachowicz Teixeira fight and that card. So we'll talk about all that. And then, of course, we're in the middle of that and then going into another epic fight card with UFC New York this weekend and Bellator being back in action. So a lot to talk about today. Of course, like I mentioned, fightersfirst.shop. Go ahead and check out all the latest merch. We just added professional boxer Justin Rolfe on there talking about in the ring. Of course, we got the mechanic collection. We got the Art of MMA collection. So check out all that great stuff, fightersfirst.shop. And last bit of news before we jump into all this stuff. If you guys are a little confused on the Instagram situation, I just want to address this because a lot of people don't know. We got kind of booted off Instagram over a security issue because somebody tried to hack our account. I was changing the passwords. I was changing some security, and I have a lot of two-factor and security of the Fighters First. For those that don't know, I do everything. But and in the process, they took our account down for a security verification and then just completely took it down. And I've been trying to fight with them to get fightersfirst.shop on Instagram back. I launched another one that got taken down immediately because it was connected. So I launched a new one that's not connected to a lot of the stuff on the back end. It's called Luchadores Primero. If you don't know, in Spanish, that means Fighters First. We joke about it on Crossing Borders. It's on the new Crossing Borders shirt for Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, which is just yesterday as well. So all that's going on in the shop. But if you see something from Luchadores Primero on Instagram, that is Fighters First. That's our ghost account until we can get our real one back. So wanted to stay in touch with people. We're going to be posting on there regularly. So go ahead and give that one a follow. I'll put the link in the show notes in the description below. And that is that. Hopefully that explains if anybody's confused. Like, where the hell did Fighters First Instagram go? I didn't delete it. Instagram does what Facebook and Instagram do, and it's out of your power. And sometimes it's a big, big FU to the people sometimes. So.
And that's why Twitter is where it's at, baby.
Yeah. Well, Twitter will suspend you quick too. If you ever start a new account, you know it's like how we verifications. Like they'll take your account down without you ever posting anything. Like all of a sudden it's like, you're suspended. Are you a real human? Can you verify this? I'm like, dude, I haven't even posted anything yet. So all the big boys sometimes have a little bit of hiccups, but we've been rocking and rolling on Twitter for a while now. So any updates definitely you can find there. Our Facebook page is still very active as well. Fighters First Clothing and Apparel. So check all that out. Obviously, all the show notes have the links for everything. So if you need to find out, it's there. And, of course, we're right here on YouTube every single week, multiple days of the week with different shows. So that is the business side of things. Brandon, you ready to talk some fights?
You know it.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start off with PFL. They had their championships for the 2021 season. A huge night, $6 million in prize money given away. Well, actually, it's over $6 million if you consider the actual purses for a lot of these cards. We had the Kayla Harrison, Taylor Guardado fight headlining. We had other like main fights, including Clarissa Shields, Julia Budd making her debut. So a lot of stuff to get to. Go ahead and jump right into the main event. Brandon, your girl Kayla, she came in, she saw, she conquered. I said Taylor would be tougher than we thought, but we also knew that there was levels to this, and she just wasn't on Kayla's level. But she did come out and put a fight up right off the bat. What you think of that fight?
Hey man, to me, Kayla Harrison just came out and she just proved her dominance in that division right now. You know, like I said, her opponent, did try to put up a fight. You know, she did survive. A little bit
she
on the
ground. Came out aggressive right off the bat.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, man, if you can't stop the takedowns, you're probably in trouble with Kayla because she does have some vicious ground and pound. You know, she does have a little bit of submissions, but really though, her thing is just to hold you there and ground and pound you. But like I said, man, it's another $1 million for her. And let's see what's next.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what's next because she keeps evolving, but she's not really fighting top of the line competition either. So it's like she is definitely one of the better fighters in the women's world, but you can't say she's in the top because she hasn't fought a Nunez, a Cyborg, even Norma Dumont or somebody at that level at the 145-pound division. Her only venture outside of PFL was last year when she went to Invicta for a night and fought Casey King, I think, and beat her up pretty badly. But once again, like, it'll be exciting to see if she, because her contract is now up, if she, stays with PFL for another year and makes another $1 million because we know there's nobody really there, or she takes the opportunity to see what else is out there. We know she probably will never fight Nunez because they're teammates and they're really good friends. Dan Lambert down at ATT has basically said he'd try whatever he can to keep them apart. He doesn't manage the fighters, but he obviously trains them. And then you got the Cyborg question. So maybe she will take a chance at Bellator and fight one of the bigger names in the sport before Cyborg rides off into the sunset because she's not getting any younger either. She's been fighting for like 15, 20 years at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what's next with Kayla, but congratulations. Obviously, she got the finalization of her adoption of her of the kids that she took in, I believe her sister's kids, that was being watched by her stepfather, who then passed away. So then Kayla kind of got them dropped off on her doorstep. She jumped into the mom role. She did that. Awesome. She's now officially their parents. And then she gets $1 million to boot, so she can now take them to Disney World. So there you go. Congratulations to Kayla Harrison. Over in that co-main event, though, Brandon, you and I were right and Tim was wrong. Sorry, Tim. I know you're not on the show to defend yourself. But Ray Cooper, he wasn't like Ray Cooper and Magomed Kamirov. It was a back-and-forth war. Magomed definitely got the advantages early on. Brandon, do you think it was a case and then, of course, Ray Cooper with the big knockout in the third round. Do you think it was a case of Magomed slowing down, or do you think it was a case of Ray Cooper kind of figuring him out?
I want to go with the latter. Like I said, man, Ray Cooper is good. Like I said, I thought that Ray Cooper's wrestling was going to help him out. And like I said, Ray Cooper's just a better fighter than who he was when they first fought. Like I said, I mean, man, Ray Cooper, man, too, man, he just has that power, man. He has that put your lights out power, and that's what happened. He caught him, and it was over.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like, I was literally moments away. This is how sudden that fight turned, because I was moments away of tweeting out, like, Ray's in trouble. Because Magomed was landing a lot on Ray Cooper earlier in that third round. And then he caught Magomed coming in, and he just rocked him. And at that point, it was all over. It just shows Ray Cooper's power, his explosiveness, and his ability to change a fight at a moment's notice. I have a hard time putting Ray Cooper in the conversation of an Usman or, a Covington Edwards type situation. If we're putting him on the top stage, an MVP or Lima, I have to see him against some of the bigger competition in the world. Obviously, Magomed Kamirov is probably one of the top guys he could fight in that division, in that level, along with Rory McDonald. But Cooper, the last couple years, has been a monster in that division in PFL, and I'm really excited to see what's next for him. Congratulations to him as well. Any other thoughts on that fight before we move on?
I mean, I was gonna say, man, I could put Ray Cooper in there because I'm saying he beat McDonald. He does have a win over Jake Shields, who's a well-known name. I would at least definitely put him over MVP. You know,
it'd be tough, but if he struggles with the striking of Magomed Kamirov, that was kind of my point. Like Magomed definitely landed on him, and if MVP landed on him, that would be a lights out because that's a different level of striking. Douglas Lima's more of a veteran; he can do different things. I wouldn't put him on the level of Usman. I think Usman's obviously one of the best in the world in any weight class, so that's a different story. But I think Cooper is definitely one of the top 10 welterweights in the world, and I don't think that's a knock. I just, once again, same as Queally, I want to see him against better competition. I want to see him not against the aging Jake Shields. I want to see him against some guys in their prime, just like he is. So we'll be interested to see. I don't know what his contract situation is, if he has another year or not. But I'll be interested to see if they bring in more fresh faces for him to face in PFL or if he jumps into different waters and swims. So we'll see. Over in the heavyweight final, Bruno, first of all, we were all right, but we were all wrong. Campolezza got the win against Delia, but it wasn't the way we thought it was going to go, Brandon. It looked like it in the beginning. Looked like Bruno was going to take him out right away and then give Delia all the credit in the world. That guy is super tough. Ended up being a 5-round war. Before we get to what happened after the fight, let's talk about the fight itself. What did you think? And tell the people at home what happened.
Hey man, it was a good fight. Saying Bruno, Bruno came out hot. You tried to get the finish early in the first round. But like I say, his opponent was definitely tough. He hung in there. I guess maybe he realized that, hey, $1 million is on the line. I better start doing something. But all in all, though, I mean, I just think Bruno had the better exchanges. He had the better control, and like I said, and he did enough to get his hand raised.
Yeah, it was kind of like an every other round type thing. Like Bruno dominated round 1, round 3, round 5, and Delia got rounds 2 and 4, and it was kind of like just back and forth, and both guys almost finished each other. Let's be real.
Yep.
And then of course, the heartbreaking news came out after the fight that Bruno's dad had passed away Sunday. The family had chose to keep it from him so he could prepare for the fight in the $1 million and everything that went along with that. And then he found out after the fight. So thankfully they didn't tell him on camera. So it was something behind the scenes or a private moment. I can only imagine just the roller coaster of emotions he was going through at the moment. But I want to send our heartfelt prayers and condolences to the Campolezza family. Obviously losing your dad, especially fight week, $1 million doesn't erase that. So congratulations on the win and our heartfelt prayers to your family. Definitely thoughts are with you guys. An amazing war, amazing fight. I don't know. I think Campolezza actually is still under contract, so I'd be excited to see who they match him up with next year. They tried to bring in some big names this year. Verdum didn't work out. Obviously, Ferreira got kind of screwed out of the situation because of the Verdum situation. So, be interested to see what happens. Like, I would love to see what happened with him and Verdum. I would love to see him match up with Ferreira. I think that would have been another nice big war that we didn't get a chance to see. But Delia kind of learned from his mistakes the first time. Tried to make it more of a war this time, but Campolezza was just that good, and he got the win. And by the way, sorry, another jab at Tim. It went 46 seconds, not 45, so I should count it as a loss, but I'm going to be nice and give you the win. But you did call your shot, and you were wrong. But we were all kind of wrong, so we thought it was going to be quick. Over in the featherweight one, Kabelev, I mean, it hurts my soul to say this. He just absolutely ran through Chris Wade, 50-45 on all scorecards. Just a unanimous 5-round decision over Chris Wade for the featherweight championship. Obviously, another one of Khabib's guys, just absolutely dominant. Chris Wade came into this thing with all the momentum. Brandon, what happened in this fight?
And then Chris Wade just got absolutely dominated. There was nothing he could do. It was on the ground. It wasn't his. If it was standing up, it wasn't his. There was just nothing he could do. He got outmatched, outmuscled. I don't know, man, out strategized, out thought. It just basically like wasn't his night, man. Like there was literally nothing he could do. Like he was. It was just, yeah, man. His opponent just came out, had a game plan, stuck to it, and he just never he never got off it.
Yeah, we'll talk about this later with Brandon's rant. If you're looking at the show descriptions, Brandon has a rant about being the best and not necessarily fighting in the UFC. We'll talk about that later, but this is an ultimate case of that, right? Like Queally is proving that he is one of the very best at 145 pounds. I'd love to see him matched up with AJ McKee Jr. I'd love to see him matched up with a Volkanovski or something like that. I don't know if he could deal with Max's hand speed, but at this point, the way he's kind of running through people, I don't know if I could put it against him because every fight he's like 50-45 or 30-26, 30-25. Like he's getting 10-8 rounds on these kids, and it's not even close. So Queally gets the win, gets the $1 million. Congratulations to him. Over in the 205-pound division, we kind of said this was going to happen. Shoeface, Antonio Carlos Jr., over Martin Hamlet. Ever since he's went up to 205, he's so strong. He gets your back, it's over. He gets you anywhere, it's over. He's just like before at 185 pounds, you could move him around. Like Tavares kept him off him, right? Like you could move him around. But now at 205, he gets on you. It's over. What did you think of the short? I mean, this was a short fight, not much to talk about. But what did you think about the Antonio Carlos Jr. Martin Hamlet fight?
I was gonna say, man, what a year for Antonio Carlos Jr. The dude was in the UFC, got cut, then boom, he signs with the PFL. The dude's winning $1 million. So to me, man, life is good for him. But on to the fight, though, man. I mean, like I had said in my preview, I was like, yo, if this fight goes down to the ground, it's gonna be his. And like I said, man, I mean, his jiu-jitsu is world class. That's really kind of what he's known for, and that's what happened, man. He once he gets his hands on you and he can't control you, a submission's coming. You're either tapping or you're going night.
Do you think because he's only getting bigger? Like he's actually, what he started UFC like 170?
No, I think he was always 185.
I remember from the Ultimate Fighter, and even John Anik and Florian talked about this on their show, calling their first fight, talking about the evolution of him. And he's gotten bigger, and especially coming off that knee injury where he couldn't probably train as much, the weight kind of comes on a little bit easier. I wouldn't even be surprised to see this guy because he's a big 205. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see him even, like, put his toe into heavyweight the way Bruno Capoloza does. Like, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see him versus Capoloza next year or something like that if he wants to go up another level. You see Fabricio Verdum has done it for a long time at a lighter heavyweight level. So it's not beyond, well, you got that kind of grappling skills going against some of these big swingers. Sometimes, skill over brawn sometimes, you can get those taps. So I don't think the ceiling is 205 for Antonio Carlos Jr., but at 205, he's a monster. And I'd love to see what's next for him in the PFL. Over in the one pick that I did get wrong on the night, House Manfio with the win over Razbahayev. A very competitive fight. Manfio definitely had the win, definitely had the better rounds, but Loic didn't run away. Like Loic was in that fight the whole time. It was a back and forth war. Tell the people at home what happened in that one for the lightweight championship.
Yeah, no, man. Like I said, Manfio, he had the momentum going in. Kind of like how Chris Wade did, but for Manfio, it wasn't. His momentum kept on going. Like I said, he had good exchanges. His kickboxing is really like kind of one of the things that was the highlight for him. Especially with his Pettis fight. But yeah, it just came out in this fight as well.
Yeah, I mean, he was in trouble that one round against Radzahav. But other than that, he did have a great performance overall. And Manfio gets the win, gets the money. And that's another kid. Like people talk about, we'll talk about this later with the UFC, but people talk about some of the best fighters in the world. PFL put on a show. They put on an absolute show. Congratulations to Davis, Ray Sefo, all those guys over at PFL for a fantastic season. A year ago, we were talking about them being dead, releasing their talent. We didn't know where they were going to fight. They let Queally go fight in Invicta. There was talk of Lance Palmer going somewhere else. A year later, we're talking about them being back as one of the big boys in the sport. So congratulations to PFL on a great season. Before we get out of here on that card, though, real quick, I didn't think it was going to go down the way it did, but I told people last week, watch out for Abigail Montez. She has the tools to compete with Claressa Shields. I thought she would stand and bang with her and get knocked out eventually, but she was smart. She didn't do too much. She wasn't exciting. There was one time she almost finished her at the end of one of the rounds. But for the most part, I know people gave Claressa Shields that first round, but I actually gave Abigail all 3 rounds because she just basically took her down, laid on her for 3 rounds, and there was nothing that Shields could do. She got up a couple times only to get taken right back down. And then, of course, I think it was the end of the second round, I think, that she mounted her, or maybe it was the third round, but she mounted her and almost finished her because Montez had gotten her confidence up at that point to say, hey, I can stay on top of this girl. For only 21 years old, Abigail Montez has a lot of experience that people don't know about in Muay Thai and fighting in Mexican leagues that aren't really, kept on Tapology and Sherdog. So she's been fighting for a while. I think she's been fighting since she was 15 or 16 years old. So not necessarily the rookie people thought. And in the MMA world, she actually had more experience than Claressa Shields. And it kind of showed because Shields obviously had the explosiveness. Shields obviously had the power. But Montez stayed out of trouble. She stayed out of the danger zone. And sometimes you do what you have to do to win. So I'll be interested to see Montez in the tournament next year. I'm sure she'll probably be in that 155-pound tournament. Even though she is actually a smaller girl. She's big, like in stature. She fought at 155 pounds for this fight. But she's fought at 135 and she's fought at 145 pounds in her 2 other fights in the career. So she's definitely not cutting weight for this division. But we'll see. With Kayla gone, who knows? Maybe they'll go down to a 145-pound division where there's a few more fighters available. A Megan Anderson or somebody like that they could bring in for next year. Any thoughts on that Claressa Shields thing before we move on?
Man, just like I said, it was her second pro fight. So let's see how Claressa Shields does in her third fight. I'm not going to get on her about anything.
Any thoughts on the Julia Budd debut?
Hey, man, like I said, I mean, Julia Budd is somebody, man, who has experience. I'm saying she's a very capable fighter. Who could be a challenge for Kayla Harrison if she sticks around next year. To me, Julia Budd in Bellator was probably like the number 2 fighter. But the thing was she knew that she couldn't beat Cyborg. So that's why she left. She's not the most exciting fighter, but if you look at her, I mean, she is a specimen. She's a strong woman, so she could probably match Kayla Harrison power wise, but that would be a fight I would definitely be down to watch. But like I said, we don't know what's going to happen next year.
That's another reason why I think they should just do away the 155-pound and have a 145-pound division. Julia Budd, Caitlin Young are both naturally 145-pound fighters. Just mentioned Montez 145. I don't know if Shields can make 145, but I think she's boxed.
Shields can't.
Yeah. I know she's boxed at 150, I think, before.
154 is her lowest. That's it.
154, okay. So that, I guess that's your name, so you don't want to avoid not having your name in the competition. The same thing with Kayla before they knew she could make 145 pounds. They invented the 155-pound division because she had always fought heavier at judo and other things. So she's proven she can make 145 pounds at Invicta. So hopefully that means further on she can as well for bigger fights. But yeah, exciting night, exciting card. The only things we didn't talk about, Jordan Young with the nice knockout over Akhmedov in the third round coming from behind. And Don Madge got the win over Nathan Williams with the rear naked choke in the second round to round out PFL 2021. Brandon, quick thoughts on the season.
It was a good season, man. I liked it. I was definitely into it. I watched the events. I know the well-known names that people were looking for didn't make it to the end, but to me, that's the beauty. You get to find out about other people. Absolutely,
I thought it was a fantastic season. Moving on, because that was not the only big event of the week. Moving on, UFC 267, Glover Teixeira and Jan Blachowicz, 2 aging fighters that just seem to keep turning back the clock. And Brandon, what happened in that fight, and tell the people at home what you thought.
Hey, I picked Jan. I thought Jan would Blachowicz, that is, was going to take this fight. I knew if the fight went to the ground, it would be Glover's, but I didn't think Glover would have so much ease with taking Jan down, because really, like saying, Glover does have takedowns, but his accuracy for his takedowns isn't so high.
And real quick, because I forgot to say it, and new champion Glover Teixeira. Go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
But really though, and also too, Glover Teixeira is really kind of known as a slow starter, but he wasn't slow this night. He came out, put it on Jan right away, got him down, really like controlled him. Jan, Jan kind of looked flat, he didn't really look like he had any movement, any energy really. Like he said in his post-fight interview, he said that, he left his Polish power in the hotel room. But, sometimes, man, it happens in the fight game. Sometimes, man, you're not on. Sometimes it's your night, and you're firing on all cylinders, and sometimes it's not your night. And I just think just in this night, Glover was firing on all cylinders, Jan wasn't, and there you go, and Glover Teixeira was your champion.
Glover Teixeira had to wait 7 years for another title shot, and I think the fact that he came out so fast, I think, is what threw Jan off his game, because Jan wasn't expected to get taken down right off the bat. Jan definitely wasn't expecting Glover to come out and fire the way he does, because even though he kind of had stepped up the last couple fights and started a little faster than he usually does, traditionally, you're right. He starts off a little slower, kind of finds his rhythm, and then kind of his 3 rounds just kind of wears you down and beats you up. We know Teixeira has a ground game. He just doesn't show it that often. But the last couple fights he had, and maybe people should have been paying attention more to the last couple fights in his whole career, because that was kind of the roadmap that he went in. The roadmap he used against the Thiago Santos and stuff like that is kind of what he used to run right through Blachowicz. Blachowicz got a couple exchanges, especially in the second round when he was finally, they started back in the stand-up again for the new round. But on the ground, it was all Glover. Jan actually tried to take him down, which was a mistake, trying to kind of pull guard a little bit, and that was just a mistake, because then once that was in, Glover ended up on top of the exchange, and it was over. But in the first round, it was all Glover on top. Jan, I think, was kind of stuck between like trying to defend himself, trying to get up, and trying to fight back. And he just kind of never made a commitment to any one of the three to try to get up. In the second round, he tried to kind of lock on a Kimura or maybe an Americana or something like that, and it ended up with the exchange of having Glover back on top of him. And at that point, it was lights out. The finish was kind of confusing. Some of the announcers thought maybe in the first round he had hurt Jan's neck or back, or neck or head or something with that crank that he had on top of him. And maybe that's why Jan tapped so fast. But it was a really weird tap to be tapping that fast before he really even had the rear naked choke in. But maybe his neck was damaged from that first round. Or maybe there was something we don't even know about. But congratulations, brand new. Like the show title says, some things are worth waiting for. And at 42 years old, Glover Teixeira is the brand new light heavyweight champion. And it really couldn't happen to a nicer dude who's earned it. Been fighting. He's been trying to be in the UFC like probably 10, 15 years before he actually got into the UFC. He was always Chuck Liddell's training partner that had visa issues. And we always heard about this guy. But then once he got in the UFC, he had a great run. Ran into, unfortunately, John Jones, who was one of the best of all time. Then he got a shot again, and here we are. As far as what's next for these guys, Anthony Smith has already called out Jan Blachowicz. He wants a shot at Jan Blachowicz because he feels like it catapults him towards the title. Jan, I'm sure, wants to try to get another rematch, but the way he looked in this one, I think he might have to win another fight beforehand. Before we get to what's next for the champion, do you think that Anthony Smith-Jan Blachowicz fight makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird because, Anthony Smith had said that the UFC had actually offered him that fight like that night. But in my head is like, I don't know why it wouldn't have been Rakic instead, since Rakic is higher, than Anthony Smith. But I would see Jan versus either one. I would be fine with.
Yeah, and as far as the champion now, the name that Dana flew out there was Prochazka, who was like an alternate for this fight. If somebody didn't make it, it was Prochazka that was going to step in. I think Rakic is kind of getting screwed in this because he hasn't lost anybody. He keeps on winning. I think Prochazka and Rakic should probably fight. The winner should get Glover. What do you think of that whole situation?
I mean, even Glover said it on his post-fight interview. He called out Yuri, or he said Yuri, you're next. Man, you know how it is, man. When you have that Dana White privilege, man, you're getting things that maybe you don't deserve. Like you think of like a Michael Chandler, 2 fights in. Same thing with Yuri. Like 2 fights in, he's getting a title shot. If Dana White likes you, you're gonna get the guy, because like I said, he was stepping in. He was gonna be the alternate if somebody backed out. So that's why basically everybody thinks that he's gonna be the next guy. So
even Glover said, "Get in the cage, Yuri."
Yeah.
I know that Dana pursued Yuri for a long time to get him into the UFC. He only has 1 UFC win against Dominic Reyes. I don't know. From a fan point of view, we don't really know much of Yuri. We know the people he's beat. If you look at the resume, you were like, all right, cool. He has a good resume. But only one of those was actually in the bright lights of the UFC. He's never fought in Bellator or PFL or anything in American soil. It's been a lot of stuff overseas. We know a lot of those fighters come over very seasoned and very good. We just talked about Kabalev and a lot of those guys over PFL, Magomed Kamirov, stuff like that. A lot of Khabib's guys. But I personally would like to see him prove himself a little bit more before you give him a title shot. But it does seem like that's what's in the waters. And I kind of feel bad for Rakic, because Rakic is now sitting there just waiting with nobody really to fight. The Anthony Smith fight didn't happen because Anthony hurt his knee. And now we're kind of just stuck waiting. So maybe Rakic, Ankalaev, if he wants to fight down rankings, he wants to stay active. But I don't really know what's next for that. But it does look like it's going to be Glover and Yuri fighting for the title, probably in March or something like that, I think Glover said. Over in the co-main event, we were both wrong, but I'll tell you this much. I said if it was Petr Yan against anybody else, I would have gone with Petr Yan, because I just thought Corey presented matchup problems. And in the first round, we kind of saw those matchup problems, right? But over the distance of the fight, and the announcers kind of made reference to it, Petr Yan kind of figures you out. And Petr Yan, as the fight goes on, gets better. A lot of people start fading around 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. Yan gets stronger. He proved it in the Sterling fight. He's proved it a number of times against the Aldo fight. He just gets stronger as the fight goes on. He starts off slow pretty much every time. This was no different. Sandhagen came out fast, high volume. He had mentioned before he wanted to get back to high volume, Corey Sandhagen. He tried to throw a couple of the flying knees, just missed. He was trying to take him out early, Brandon. What happened in this fight that made it so Petr Yan took over? I have my own thoughts on it, but you're the expert. What happened in this fight?
So a few things that I noticed in this fight was, one, especially starting out in the beginning, Corey Sandhagen was working the body. He was throwing those body shots, which was landing. He was throwing those leg kicks. But basically going on into the fight, he stopped throwing them. My reasoning is because when he would throw a body shot, he was only throwing one punch at a time. It wasn't a combination. And like I always tell people anyway, you never want to end a combination on a body shot because you leave yourself open. And that's what was happening. Yan kept on catching him every time Corey would throw a punch to the body. Yan would just counter and pop him right in his head. And I just think that Sandhagen was like, I don't like this. I don't want this anymore. With that. So that's why he stopped going to the body. Also, too, another thing is that, man, Sandhagen doesn't really have much pop, man. He got no power when he's throwing these punches or these elbows.
He has more power in his legs than his arms. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, because there was times where like legit, Yan was just standing right in front of him, and Sandhagen was just like pop, 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 throwing elbows. I'm like, but dude, there's no power there. And then next Yan's blocking, rolling with it. Then next Yan's throwing just some power shots, catching Corey. And it's like, if that's somebody, if Sandhagen had more power in his hands, it could have been a different fight. But the thing was, like saying, he wasn't. He was just kind of just pop shot. And with that, I mean, Sandhagen did some good things because Petr Yan, I mean, he was throwing some punches, but he was missing a lot too. Like a lot of people don't see that. Like I mean, they always want to see the positive, but they don't also see the negative. I'm saying he was missing a lot. Like Sandhagen was making him miss a lot. So I mean, he was throwing a lot of punches. He was missing a good amount, but the ones that he landed, they had power on them. That's the thing. He was doing more damage than Sandhagen was.
I think, and even Sterling said Jan fought a beautiful fight. Like, I think, in my opinion, Sandhagen got predictable. What Sandhagen would do is so first of all, let me back up a second. Petr Yan has power in both hands, not just his left, not just his right. Honestly, I would love to see Davis and Figueiredo move up a division and fight Petr Yan, because I think those two are very similar in the way they kind of approach the fight. Like, start off slow, figure you out, and then just throw bombs. But Sandhagen was constantly, he'd move like a few steps to his left, and then he'd circle all the way back to his right. And then he'd circle all the way back to his left. And he got to the point where he was just kind of, unless he was jumping in to do like a volume shot, that's what he was doing. Now, that might work if you have an opponent who only has power in one hand or one side. But Petr Yan has power in both hands. So what would happen starting, like, especially in the second, later in the second, early in the third round, is I think Yan figured that out. Because if you saw the fight, every time Corey would circle, to his right, Yan would throw the left hook and rock him and catch him. If he'd go the other way, Yan would throw the right hook and catch him. It got to the point where Sandhagen had to adjust, and he didn't. He kept trying that same strategy he had the whole fight, kind of darting in and out. And I think Petr Yan did adjust, and he figured out his rhythm. He figured out which way he was going, when he was going. And it got to the point where it was almost predictable. So by the end of the fight, there was really not doubt in my mind, A, who was winning the fight. But also, I was surprised that Yan didn't even finish Sandhagen, because he was rocking him so many times. Every time Corey would rotate left or rotate right, it was like a hook was just waiting for him, or a kick or something of that nature coming from the other way. And it was just a great strategy by Petr Yan, like, to counter a lot of that stuff. Now, that is the fight. And like I said, tremendous performance for Yan. That's the fight. After the fight, of course, Sterling, for his part, came out, said, beautiful performance by Yan. He's earned his way back to fighting me. Kind of arrogantly, but still on point. Yan, for his sake, called him a chicken heart and said, a man who ran away once will always run away again. So I don't know if we're going to see Sterling versus Yan sometime early 2022. I hope we do. Brandon, you think we're going to see that fight?
Yeah, I do. I mean, unless somehow they're going to try to put Dillashaw in the mix, but to me, it'll be Yan and Sterling as long as everything's good with Sterling health wise, which he says it is. That should be good. So I mean, he's trying to say January or February, but I think it really means either February or March more likely. Because I think January's pay-per-view is already filled up. So I mean, they could maybe get on that February one, or they could get on the March one. So that's why I say February or March.
Yeah, I mean, I could see either one, honestly. I just think that's another one. Like, remember, like, how many times we thought we were going to see Khabib versus Tony Ferguson? And
yeah,
it's something that always would come up. Like, even the night before the fight, like, Ferguson hurt his knee. Like, there was always something. And I feel like this is going to be one of those stories where, because of what happened the first time, it's always going to be an intriguing, like, story. I don't know if we'll ever see Sterling versus Yan again. And I'd be interested, because I don't think Sterling beats a TJ Dillashaw if TJ gets the next shot. And I think Yan and Dillashaw is a hell of a fight. So a lot of matchups to be made. And if Figueiredo in January loses to Moreno, there's probably a 99% chance he goes up in weight class, because he was talking about going up in weight class before he got stuck in this trilogy with Miranda Moreno. So that's another name to throw in that mix. So we're going to see. But for the night, great performance by Petr Yan. As far as the rest of the card goes, Tim's pick was Dan Hooker over Makhachev. I said it. Makhachev just ran through him. I feel bad for Dan Hooker because of everything going on with the situation, trying to get back home to New Zealand. He took a fight so he could kind of stay active while he was kind of waiting for everything. It just did not go his way. It wasn't a good matchup. I said it last week. Like, it was just kind of reminding me of the Michael Chandler matchup. it just didn't look good on paper. Makhachev is not just going to stand there and bang with you. He's going to try to take you down. He's going to try to rush you. He's going to try to do a lot of different stuff, and that's kind of exactly what happened. Alexander Volkov got the win over Tabura, unanimous decision. My pick, Khamzat Chimaev, basically tried to steal the show, carrying Leach around and then dumping him while he was talking shit while he was doing it. The one thing that really impressed me from him, though, wasn't necessarily the quick finish. It was actually that he switched hands. Like, he was almost ambidextrous with the way he did the rear naked choke. It wasn't working on one side. Leach was fighting out of it. He switched to the other side and put him out quick. You don't see that very often. That's a very high-level skill thing with MMA. Do you think that Chimaev's for real now? I know you kind of questioned it in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Leach was his toughest, competition. So, like I said, I wasn't down the hype. I was just waiting for somebody like that was really up there, and Leach was somebody.
Himself, yeah.
So I mean, hey man, like he did that to the Leach. I'm saying Leach does have some ground skills. I mean, he's more top position than bottom position, but he's got some ground skills. He's got some power, But hey, man, let's see what's next for him though.
Looks like it's either going to be Nate Diaz, and I think Neil Magny wants in on the action too. He called him out as well.
Yeah, Neil Magny wants to smoke for sure, and I'd be down for that fight.
I would too. Neil Magny's kind of come up short in some big fights, but he's always super tough and super competitive, and that'd be a great challenge for him in the top 10. Obviously, the Nate Diaz would be a big draw as far as like money wise to see, and Dana wants that fight, so I think that's probably where it's going to go. Obviously, Chimaev had no shortage of words for winning that BMF belt, and Masvidal and Diaz and everybody else. So we'll see. Ankalaev got the win over Ozdemir. You want to break down real quick? You were right. Hebus got the win over Jandaroba.
Hey man, it's just man. Like I know Hebus didn't look so well in her last fight, but hey man, it was a bounce back fight. First round little iffy, but second and third round, man, she was on point. She was on fire. It was hers for sure. First round, was a little back and forth, but second and third, she just turned it on. Like I said, man, she got fast hands. She does have some good striking, good combinations. She does have a ground game as well, if needed. But yeah, man, it was just her night, and same that second and third round was definitely hers for sure.
I think that was the difference. Her striking, because before she wouldn't have adjusted, like in that Rodriguez fight, like she wouldn't have adjusted and started using her striking. She was kind of more ground heavy in the beginning. In this fight, Virna took her down early and controlled the first round, and she realized she didn't want to be on her back. And then she started letting her hands and elbows and everything and legs go flying in the second round. You saw the whole fight change. It's not like Virna ever went away. She's never been stopped. She's never been finished, but definitely the second, third round, just the whole fight changed. The first round, I think Virna won the first round, but the second and third round, I think he was just kind of just took it and changed her game. And maybe that sabbatical, maybe that time away from the cage, like she used it to up her game quite a bit. So congratulations to her. I'm gonna butcher his name, but Tukagov got the win over Ramos. Albert Duraev got the win over Kopylov in what was kind of just like. All right, so let me skip out of order real quick because there was a big situation, obviously, on this fight card with the referee. The referee in the Dos Santos Sandini fight should arguably be fired from the sport, never ref again. In that fight, Dos Santos pretty much had Santini finished in the second round. Like unloading nonstop. Santini wasn't fighting back. He wasn't answering. He was trying to cover up. If anything, once in a while, he'd throw a weak, like little paw punch out to get him away from him. The fight should have been stopped. Multiple times should have been stopped in the second round. For Santini's respect, I mentioned him last week, how underrated he was, and people didn't know about this guy. He's a former Special Forces fighter or current Special Forces fighter for France. He's extremely tough. He's not going to quit. There's no quitting him no matter whatsoever. You have to finish him. And he fought back to the point where despite what happened in the second round, I think arguably, I know a lot of people, like everybody gave Dos Santos the third round. I think Santini actually won the third round because I think Dos Santos was either coasting because he was tired and gassed out, or protecting Santini for more damage because he knew. But just based on output and fight skills, I think Santini actually won the third round personally, which just goes to how amazingly tough this guy is, right? Like he had no quit whatsoever. The referee was removed from the further fights on the card. The reason why I bring up this situation, and actually before I move on, Brandon, do you have any thoughts on the situation?
I mean, I was gonna say my man might need to find himself a new corner because I heard his coach said that he was never gonna throw in the towel or anything like that.
Yeah, and we always say the corner knows you best, but sometimes it might be the wrong corner for you. I agree because we talked about that just a couple weeks ago with who's the female fighter we were talking about? Who Dumont fight?
Aspen Ladd.
Yeah, Aspen Ladd. We were talking about that with that and like how Aspen Ladd's corner kind of steered her wrong, but maybe they know her best. That said, fast forward to the Derave Kopylov fight. Now I know Kopylov came back in the third round. He was competitive as well. I say all the time, I think Jason Herzog is the best ref in the business. I think Jason missed one in this fight. I think in the second round, I think Derave should have got the win. I think the fight should have been stopped. I think there were multiple times Derave could have had the fight stopped and won, and Herzog let the action continue. Kopylov, for his strength and endurance and just toughness, fought and kept going and had a pretty good third round as well. That said, my point is that I know Brandon always thinks like I bash on Herb Dean and never bash on Jason Herzog anybody. I'm telling you on air, I think Jason Herzog fucked up. And it was right on the heels of the other fight, so nobody really called him out on it. If the other fight hadn't happened, I think more people would have been calling out Jason Herzog for this fight. I think he let one go that should not have been gone, and he should have protected the fighter. But that's my thoughts on that one. Also on the card, I can never say his name, but Oleksykov over Gamzatov, just a big knockout. He had Gamzatov on his heels the entire time. Shamil Gamzatov was heavily favored in this fight, and Michael just keeps knocking people out. He just keeps stopping people. And that was also supposed to be, I believe, another situation where the ref was supposed to be in it. LaRon Murphy got the win over Amir Khani, kind of proving that he isn't just a paper undefeated guy. He's knocking off tougher competition. I want to see him keep moving up the rankings. I want to see him going against tough. And then Petrosky versus Yao Zong versus submission, and Yulin Bekov versus Nascimento split decision win. Brandon, any of those other fights kind of stick out to you today? Or last weekend?
Just cool. I mean, it's cool for LaRon Murphy, especially with his story, about being shot in the face and everything like that, and just how he's able to survive that, and now what he's doing,
thriving, yeah. He looked monster. He looked impressive. Big knockout and big flying knee. Yeah, I think that wraps it up for UFC 267. Not the smoothest segue in my history, but I think that pretty much wraps it off. Man, just an epic fight week last week that we had between PFL and UFC. And we're not done yet. Coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to break down what's coming up this weekend with Bellator and UFC. But first, this week in MMA, let's get to some quick news notes. Not a lot to really slow you down, but there's a couple things I want to get Brandon's thoughts on. First, just to kind of like a side note, but really cool note if you're a basketball fan like I am, NBA Hall of Famer Grant Hill, his daughter made her debut in MMA, Myla Hill, and got the submission win. So congratulations to her. I'll drop the link in the show notes if you want to check out her win. MMA Fighting posted the video. Pretty cool. In BKFC, which I know Brandon's favorite, we got Britton Hart versus former MMA fighter Pearl Gonzalez. That's going to be one of the headlining fights in Miami on November 12th. And then Brandon, your teammate, Jimmie Rivera, looks like he's making the jump to BKFC. I never saw that one coming. I thought he still had gas in the tank when it came to MMA. Did you know this was coming, or is this kind of a surprise to you?
let's just say I keep my ears to the streets and they were talking to me. All right.
Keep your ears to the street. You mean you keep them open in the gym?
Hey man, I'm always I'm always just there. I see what's happening. Hey man, kudos to him, man. Like I said, just because he's coming, just because he's going to bare knuckle doesn't mean that he's done with MMA. You never know, how long he'll be there for, So, but we shall see. We shall see when it is that he'll get to make his debut.
I was actually surprised he didn't go back to Bellator. I thought, or take a chance at next season in the PFL. I know, obviously, UFC, either the contract was up or he got let go. It's kind of confusing. And maybe somebody with his ear to the streets knows more about that situation.
Hey, man, just listening out here. Just listening.
Oh, my God.
No comments out here.
Man, come on. He's the worst. Tim, call me. Take over this show. Anyway, I'm excited to see him. He's always been a great banger. He's got good hands. My only question was, and this just goes to show how much money I think BKFC is throwing out some of these guys. They just signed Mike Perry as well. Because Gamebred has his bare knuckle. Like, if that's something you want to do, he's got bare knuckle MMA going on. I think they've had a couple events now. I think Bellator would have definitely been an option for him, especially at that weight class, coming in, giving more competition. I'm just confused. I didn't expect him at 32 to be already making that jump to bare knuckle. I expect the fighters like late 30s to kind of make that jump. I'm still waiting for Jeremy Stevens to make that jump because I know it's coming. Sorry, Jeremy. You're doing it. You're going to eventually do it. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you just mentioned Mike Perry. Mike Perry's another young guy too, but he too said that though, he's not done with MMA either. It's all about your options, so, you just got to see, what's coming later.
I don't mean this as an insult. I mean this as somebody who needs to get help. I think Mike Perry has a little bit too much Mayhem Miller in him. Take that for what you want at home. Anyway, this is why we only do video now and not audio anymore. So you can see things like that. And then the last bit of news, Tyson Fury is actually going to be in his brother Tommy's corner against Jake Paul in their fight on December 18th. So a week after Brandon returns to the scene, you got Jake Paul stealing the scene. Sorry, Brandon, but I think he'll do a little bit better pay-per-view numbers than you.
Hey, you never know, man. I got people. I got people out west, and of course, I got you down in Florida. So yes. Speaking of my fight, you're saying it is going to be a pay-per-view. I'm going to have a code for you guys, so be tuned for that too. That way you can watch it.
That's what I'm talking about. There's the plugs. Way to go, buddy. We're looking forward to that, man. How many times we've been trying to get that fight going for you? Like 3 or 4 cancellations.
Yep.
Man, I can't wait to December 11th and November 20th. UWA Elite. You never know who might show up. Quick RKO, roll out. Right. There's no weight classes in UWA, buddy.
It is wrestling. Yeah, you're right.
And whoever writes the script gets it done. So I could be writing the script. You don't know. Anyway, that's the news for the week. But now, oh man, we teased it last week because Brandon didn't really have anything to be angry about. But this week, Brandon's got something to talk about. The rant is yours, sir.
Oh yeah, man. My rant this week is just because you're in the UFC doesn't mean that you're the best, which is what everybody seems to think, especially those MMA fans, who think that they know MMA front to back. Saying just because you're in the UFC doesn't mean you're best. For instance, case in point is just this past card, you had your light heavyweight, which something we did talk about earlier before, but saying, people want to say that Jan's the best, but he just lost to Glover Teixeira. Mm-hmm. And you got Corey Anderson, who's in Bellator. He has a win over both of them, but then you got Nemkov, who could be up there as well. But then even now, we're just about with PFL. Maybe Antonio Carlos Jr. at 205 is his best weight class. You know what I'm saying? Like, that guy has the ground game to go up against a Corey Anderson, to go up against a Nemkov on the ground. We don't even have to worry about his standing, but you never know. Maybe his striking is enough for them. But even again, going with Bellator as well. You got AJ McKee, who's the champion for a while, right? We used to talk about Pitbull, being maybe one of the best or the best featherweight out there, But I feel like a lot of people just think like, oh, it's the UFC, it must be the best. No, when you're in the UFC, that means that you're one of the best. That doesn't mean that you are the best, So I'm saying, so you can still be the best. For instance, Fedor Emelianenko, he's never been in the UFC, but usually most people think of him as the best heavyweight MMA fighter that was out there. Same thing with Rampage. When he was in Pride, and Chuck Liddell was in the UFC. A lot of people had Rampage being the best, or they had it being Chuck. As I'm just saying, people to me just look at who's fighting, look at how they're fighting. Don't just think of the brand, or should I say the promotion, because I think about like boxing. You think about boxing like, oh, there's Top Rank, there's PBC, there's Matchroom, all that stuff. Like all those guys are all over the place, but people still know who the best boxer is, or who they think that it could be.
Well, that always comes down to promotions, right? Like
yeah.
PFL has arguably been the only one that said, hey, we'll cross promote any fight. Scott Coker has kind of said he'd be down, but it's television contracts. And
Scott Coker has cross promote with Ryzen. He just has,
but they don't have American television. Yeah, they don't have American television contracts. His contract with Showtime is what he mentioned as far as like the hold up with anybody cross promoting between PFL when he was directly asked about that. I agree with you. I do think the better fighters in general overall, I think, are in the UFC because they've been doing it longer. That's the dream of everybody, where they want to go. You kind of look at the whole wrestling metaphor, right? Where some kids grow up, they want to be in the WWE. Like that's just like you first get into wrestling. That's your dream job. And some people, when they get in the business, they get jaded. They don't want to do it anymore. Like the Young Bucks or whatever. They go and do their own thing in AEW. But there are people that dream their whole life of getting into the UFC. And when they do, that's it. And then maybe after fighting a few fights in UFC, they're like, okay, I've done this. Let's go somewhere else. The problem with MMA, especially when it comes to comparing to boxing, is that boxing, you're promoting fighters. You're not promoting brands, right? It's like I promote Brandon Cuttino. Like Brandon could fight in Glory. Brandon could fight in anywhere else, USKA, wherever. Now, kickboxing is a little bit like MMA, where they do have contracts. Alex Pereira was locked into Glory for a long time, and now all of a sudden he's free and he's going to MMA. But my point is, like, Deontay Wilder could fight Joshua tomorrow. You look at Triple G and Canelo, or Caleb Plant and Canelo. Like, they could fight each other no matter where they're from or what they're doing, because it's all about the money in boxing, right? It's like, what's the biggest fight? Or building your ranking in whatever case. When you have brands and promotions doing it almost wrestling-like, right? Because they're leagues. They're not necessarily like we just talked about, a Cabalev, at 145 pounds. Would we love to see him fight AJ McKee? Sure. But unfortunately, the two best can't fight because they're in promotions and they're signed to contracts. And that does open up this conversation of like, who is really the best? And it's great as a fan to be sitting back and like sit by the water cooler and be like, oh man, I think this guy could beat that guy if they ever fought in a dream match. And it's always going to be dream matches because of the way MMA's built itself up with promotions and locking fighters into exclusive contracts. I think it was brilliant by the UFC early on to do that because it helped build MMA to what it is today, into a mega conglomerate mogul business. But I think we're always going to be wondering who's the best. I think you're right. I don't think the best athletes are always in the UFC. I think a lot of the best athletes are in the UFC. If it comes to, we were just talking about 170 pounds and Ray Cooper, I don't think Ray Cooper touches Usman. I think Usman smokes him, but I think Usman smokes almost anybody. He's like ranked number 1 pound for pound across the sport. He just happens to be in the UFC. John Jones for a long time. Didn't matter what promotion. John Jones was the best, and he happened to be in the UFC. I think the names we know are most marketed are in the UFC because of the marketing machine behind them. But I think 205 is a great example. I think Nemkov might be the best in the world. Will we ever see him fight one of the UFC guys? I don't know. I think the UFC division, 205 division, is a little bit down. No disrespect to Glover, but a little bit down since John Jones vacated everything. You don't have that marquee name at top of the division anymore. You don't have a champion that's defended the belt multiple times to kind of be like, hey, look at me. So there's questions with that. It's your rant. I'll give you the last thought on it.
Yeah, man. My thing is though, also too is like same we talk about like Ray Cooper. Like I remember somebody. So actually, no, I actually do think speaking of PFL people, like both like people come out and say like, oh man, I wish Kayla Harrison was in the UFC, or oh man, I can't see Ray Cooper in the UFC, and I'm just like, no, why? Like to me, like again, prize fighters want to get paid, but the thing is though, why should they have to go there? Why can't those guys that are in the UFC when their contracts are up go to the PFL or go to Bellator? Especially if they're gonna pay you more, and everything like that. And plus, too, there's still good competition.
Yeah, I think Corey Anderson is probably the good example. He went and made more money in a couple fights in Bellator than he made his whole UFC career. But I also think if Corey didn't get knocked out by Jan, his marketability would have been a little bit higher, and he would have been making that side money, the endorsement money that you get from being on TV, on the big stage, so to speak. So it's like I'll give another analogy. You could play in the NBA and play for the New York Knicks and make $15 million a year and be in front of every television, or you can make $20 million a year playing in China and nobody knows you're playing. That's really up to you, like if you're more concerned with the money or the marketability. And I think that's the difference between UFC and everybody else, unfortunately. People are catching up quick, though. I think Bellator and PFL are definitely catching up quick in America. And, of course, there's that talk of the new MMA league coming in 2023, I think. Maybe even like 2 years away, that Ariel mentioned. So we'll see. But that is the rant. That is what Brandon is angry about this week. Brandon, you ready to make some picks and get on out of here?
Yes, sir, man. I gotta keep my lead.
Yeah, the lead dog went 6-3. Tim went 6-3. Got his record of 500. He's now 17-14. I went 5-4, but it was not a pretty UFC night. All right, are you pulling a Tim? You getting some packages delivered during the middle of the show?
Sorry, yeah, I guess so.
For those who don't know, you have to check out Kicking It from last episode when Tim got a package in the middle of his episode. You good? You ready to make some picks?
Yeah.
All right. Bellator 270 this week, headlined by Peter Queally versus Patricky Pitbull. They're running it back. It's the second time they fought. Of course, the belt on the line because his brother, Patricio Pitbull, vacated it. So they're fighting for the vacated 155-pound belt. Who you got in this fight and why?
Man, it's kind of is a tough one. Like, I kind of want to go with Pitbull just because I just think it's just set up for him to get it. But I mean, his opponent is no slouch, I guess I'm just gonna go with Pitbull. I'm gonna go with Pitbull. I'm gonna just try to say that is gonna stay in the family. And I mean, kudos to him for going over to Ireland and trying to get trying to get the job done. He's going into enemy territory. But I'm just gonna go with Pitbull on this one.
Yeah, when they fought earlier this year, it was the weird doctor stoppage with everything. It was on the undercard of the Archuleta Pettis fight where Pettis won the title. Second round doctor stoppage. It's just a weird situation. Technically, Queally got the win, but it wasn't no definitive like who's the better fighter. So I thought Queally was getting the better of the exchanges that night, and I think he will this time. I do think Peter's going to win the belt. I don't think it's going to stay in the family. That is my pick for that one. Over in the co-main event, you got Patchy Mix going against James Gallagher. I'm super excited for this fight. I think both guys, Patchy obviously a former champion, Gallagher on his way up, kind of has a little Conor McGregor in him, loves to talk, loves to run his mouth. Who you got in this fight?
Patchy Mix all day, every day, man. I'm not into the James Gallagher hype. I think he's gonna basically probably get embarrassed in this fight, and people will and the James Gallagher hype will die down.
Man, I'm torn on this one because, first of all, both of them only have one loss. Both of their losses are not bad losses. Obviously, Patrick Mix lost his belt to Archuleta, who then lost it to Pettis. So there's that little triangle there. Gallagher's only loss was back in 2018 to Ricky Bandejas. Not a bad loss either. He got caught with a head kick. It happens in MMA. He's bounced back and got 4 straight wins, including 3 by stoppage. I think the difference on this is whether it stays standing or goes to the ground. Goes to the ground, I think it's Gallagher all day. I think Patchy Mix has that toughness, that Buffalo toughness. Talked about it on Unfiltered, training with Solomon early in the days up in Western New York. Strangely enough, with a fight we'll talk about later, Billy Q as well was up in that gym as well before he went down to Tampa. Patrick Mix has run through everybody not named Archuleta. He seems very big for that division. I don't know how he makes weight, to be honest with you. He's got a lot of power, but I'm going to stick with you. I'm going to go with Mix on this one too. I think as long as he keeps it standing. I think if he goes to the ground, it could be a mistake. But if he can keep it standing, I think it should be Mix's night to take care of that one. Also on that card, you got Charlie Ward against Fabian Edwards. Brandon's guy, Daniel Weissel, is going to be in against Pedro Carvalho. Clark versus Barton. You got Boulade versus Sasu. Ashley Reese versus Luca Paclet. You have Danielle Scottsty versus Hoy. Chadwick versus Andres Kavickas. I'm sorry. Soli versus Pallet. You have Danny Nealon versus Carucci in a battle of the ladies that Brandon will probably be watching. Junior Morgan versus a debuting Kelly. A couple other debuting fights. Costello versus Nazakadov. And then finishing out Sarah Cam versus Charlie Milner. Also a bunch of young. There's a lot of like 1 loss or no loss fighters on the bottom of this card trying to make a name for themselves. So definitely something to watch out for. Brandon, any other fights kind of standing out to you on this card?
No, not really.
Watching that Weissel fight.
Yeah. I mean, probably mostly the main card, probably what I'm be into. But then also too, like I said, I might catch out maybe like one or 2 prelims that really kind of catch me. Like I said, of course the lady fight, I'm always down to watch, and then maybe one more after that. But really not much, because I want to say this is kind of really more of a European card. Like I say, they're in Ireland, so they probably got a whole bunch of Irish fighters on there. So.
You know what time that card's going to be taking place? It's going to be early, right? For US viewers. I
want to say I think it could be a 4 o'clock start.
Yeah, I think it's pretty early. It's going to be on November 5th. Speaking of the ladies, though, I think this is kind of building up like another build-up fight for Danny Nealon to see if she's for real or not at 4-0 going against the 6-6 Carucci. So check out that fight. And then also one fighter I'm looking forward to is Ciaran Clark he's 3-0. I think it's going to be on the beginning of the main card, maybe, or like the headline of the preliminaries. We're going against 6-1-1 Jordan Barton. That's going to be a fun fight. But that is Bellator 270. Let's switch gears, go over to the UFC and finish up our night. Of course, UFC 268 in Brandon's backyard, New York City, Madison Square Garden on November 6th, headlining by Usman Covington 2. Brandon, does this fight go any different than the first fight?
Yeah, actually, it's going to go a little different. It's going to be where Usman's going to finish him earlier instead of the 5th round. I could see him. Covington's a tough guy, so I'll give him second, third round. But I think it's going to be, and still, like I say, I think Usman's the better wrestler. I want to say they're both cardio machines. So I'm saying I'm definitely not going to take that from Covington, but I don't think Covington was the best striker in the first place. But Usman has definitely upped his striking, hanging out with Trevor Whitman. So I just think Usman's striking is going to be on another level. And like I said, man, he broke Covington's jaw, and it took him 5 rounds to do it. Like I said, this time it might take him two or 3 this time.
Yeah, I've heard Usman talk about it, how he's like, he was at that point, he had figured him out. He broke his jaw, then he was going to go for his orbitals and everything else if the ref hadn't stopped it, or if he hadn't gotten that knockdown and finished him. I think Covington's improved since the first fight. I think it's going to be a lot. I actually think I pick Usman 100%, but I think it's going to be a very competitive 5-round fight. I think what I saw from Covington against, I mean, yeah, it's an aging Tyron Woodley, and Woodley didn't really look like he wanted to fight all that much, especially in the later rounds. But Covington looked fantastic in that Woodley fight, as much as we were all rooting for Woodley. Covington looked great. It was his bounce back fight. My problem with Covington is always his inactivity. Like, he avoids more fights than he actually fights. And so I always wonder what Covington we're getting when he shows up. Well, then he shows up and shows out. He's always in shape. He's always ready to go. I hate him as much as everybody else hates him. His personality makes everybody want to punch him in the face on the street. But in the end, in the cage, he's actually very talented. But I think I said it all day long on this episode. Usman is a different level than everybody else. Usman is the best welterweight in the world. He goes in and gets better every single fight. You know, we talked about what he was before he went with Whitman, before the Gilbert Burns fight. Since the couple fights with Whitman, he's been another level. So I think Usman takes this fight. I think it's going to be a 5-round war. I don't think Covington's getting out of there, but I think it's going to be probably a 49-46 type thing where maybe Covington steals a round if Usman starts slow like he normally does. But that's about it. In the co-main event, we got another rematch. Of course, Rose Namajunas defending her belt against the woman she won it against, Weili Zhang. Who you got in that one?
Man, I know. I think the last time this fight happened, I picked Lee, and of course she got dropped.
I was the only one to pick Rose.
Yeah, man. Like, I don't know, man, dude. Lee now has a new team. She's now hanging out at Fight Ready in Arizona with Henry Cejudo and his squad. So I mean, you definitely know she's gonna be prepared. But then again, though, which of course you brought up to me last time, I just didn't think about it, is that yes, Rose trains with Trevor Whitman, and I'm just really high on Trevor Whitman, so I'm gonna go with Rose. Another and still, I think they're both. I think she's keeping her belt. Like I said, man, like I do think Lee maybe could have the advantage standing, because I think Rose could have maybe some better hands, but I think Lee has hands and legs. You know, even though, yes, I know Rose did catch her with a head kick. I know.
Last time.
I know. But I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go with Thug Rose and still.
I think it's it'll be definitely more than a few second fight than the last one was. But Rose's striking is on a different level. You talk about the Trevor Whitman, but people forget that her, I guess, fiance at this point.
No, I think they are finally married.
Are they finally married?
I believe so.
Her husband, Pat Barry, is
kickboxer.
Not just a great MMA fighter, but yeah, a fantastic kickboxer in his time. So Thug's striking is on point. She's always had enough grappling to kind of survive. I think Thug Rose's problem has always been her confidence, and right now, she was screaming at herself before the fight, I'm the best, getting herself hyped up, and she went out and she did it. And not only did she do it, she did it in spectacular fashion to where you yourself said you didn't think that Weili deserved a rematch. Somebody else probably should have got it, like Carla or somebody.
Yeah.
Weili, I think, earned the rematch with her performances against Joanna and some of the other fights she's had. She was a dominant type female fighter for a long time. So sometimes when a flash knockout happens, you're like, all right, was it a fluke? Was it real? Okay, let's run it back and find out. They're doing it on one of the grandest stages in New York City. The only loss that Rose has in the last 4 years was to Andrade. And that was when Andrade slammed her on her neck, which is even questionable whether it was a legal slam or not. I personally feel like if you can pick somebody up and slam them, I don't know the whole legality thing of it. I think I think it's legit to me, because like you literally just manhandle somebody or woman handle somebody, like you deserve it. Whether they land on their head or not, that's their problem. But I know the rules are the rules. She got that. She came back, got the split decision win, though I don't think it was a split decision. I think she clearly beat Andrade the second time. Then came back and knocked out Weili. I think she's going to come back and get the win. I think it'll probably be a decision. I think it's going to be a very tough 5-round fight, but we've proven over the years with the Joanna fights and Michelle Waterson fights and even the split decision loss to Carolina, she doesn't go anywhere. Rose is there for the fight unless you knock her out. I don't think Weili's going to knock her out. I don't think she puts herself in a bad situation. So I think long-winded version, and still Rose Namajunas as the champion. Also on that card, you got Justin Gaethje versus Chandler. Your fight pick of the night: Shane Burgos versus Billy Q. Who you got now?
Man, exactly. I got my boy Shane Burgos. Man, like I say, man, he's looking to bounce back from the Edson Barboza fight. Billy Q, man, is a good fighter. But I really kind of I want to say Billy's specialty is really more on the ground. But the thing is, though, like I've mentioned this before, but a lot of people forget, man, Shane Burgos, when he first started out, especially MMA, man, submissions was his game too. I mean, he just got really good with his hands. So to me, man, I think Shane is just better overall. If it's standing, if it's on the ground, it's his fight it's his fight. No matter where it goes, I think he'll get his hand raised.
I agree. I think Shane's just a better fighter, but at the same time, we talk about this almost every time he fights. Like, hey, remember he has wrestling, and then he doesn't do it. Like we said that against Barboza. We were like, hey, he can take him down, and he didn't do it. He gets stuck in these like cowboy Wild Wild West like slugfest. But in this case, I think if he does it against Billy Q, he's got the stronger power, and I think he can get Billy out of there. And that's not a knock on Billy, who trains right here in Tampa. Billy's a fantastic fighter. I think the thing that really could get Shane in trouble is if he hits him with one of those like sneaky head kicks. But we'll see. It's gonna be a fun fight. And I didn't mean to really skip over it. I know it's like we cover the main, co-main, and pick a fight. But just real quick, it's not an official pick. But who do you have in that Gaethje Chandler fight?
Oh man, come on, Justin Gaethje, baby. Michael Chandler's gonna get stopped in that fight. Leg kicks for days, and Gaethje's throwing bombs with those hands.
Maybe this is why I'm not the lead dog, but I actually disagree. I think Chandler's gonna take this one. I think Chandler's got the shorter, quicker pop, quicker to the execution, where Gaethje has to kind of like range a little bit to get his power off. I think in this case, it might actually benefit Chandler to be the shorter, stockier fighter. But that's going to be a fun matchup. I didn't want to overlook it just because we go to make our fight picks and neither one of us picked that fight. But I did want to mention it. My fight pick, Frankie Edgar versus Marlon Vera. Of course, it was supposed to be, Sugar Sean versus Frankie. Sugar didn't want that smoke. He didn't want to pay the taxes in New York City. Whatever the case is, it ended up being Marlon Vera, which is a fantastic fight. But I think it's a great fight to actually get Frankie right. My pick in this fight is Frankie Edgar, fighting in his backyard. He's a Jersey guy, fighting in his backyard in New York City. He's beloved. You're going to have, what's Madison Square Garden hold, like 25,000 people?
No, it's like 18 to 20,000, something like that.
Well, you're going to have 18 to 20,000 people screaming for Frankie Edgar in that fight. It's going to be a huge advantage. And I think Frankie's going to carry that through. I think his wrestling is above Marlon's. I think Marlon's obviously got the kicks. He's got the striking. But I think Frankie's wrestling and ability to get in and out of situations. I mean, I think you always have to watch out for the flash knockout because once it's been done to you once, it can be done to you again. But I think Frankie Edgar is smart enough to make the adjustments. And I think Frankie's going to take this fight. Any thoughts on this one?
Hey, man, you know me. Iron Army, baby. Frankie Edgar. I'm always rooting for Frankie.
Another fight that you're probably interested in, Alex Pereira, making his debut in the UFC against Michailidis. Any thoughts on that one?
Alex Pereira getting the job done, man. Probably a left hook again.
You think this one's kind of being fed for him so he can get propped up?
Nah. I mean, I think, like I said, I think his opponent is a tough opponent, but yeah, I mean, I just think MSG. I think he'll show up. Same man, training with Glover Teixeira too. The guy who's now the champ. I just think he'll want to keep it going.
Speaking of Michailidis, his last fight was a win over KB Buller, obviously the brother of one champion Buller. So interesting situation there. Should be a little tougher fight than people think, but I think Pereira's going to get it done with his striking. A very fun fight, Ali and Quinta versus Bobby Green. Both guys have no backup in them. It's probably going to be a 3-round battle. I kind of expect Bobby Green to be the little sharper of the two, but fighting in your backyard, Long Island MMA, Ali and Quinta, or not Long Island, I'm sorry, Sarah Longo, MMA, Ali and Quinta. So right there in his backyard. Your boy Phil Hall's in action against Chris Curtis. I know this was one of the fights you're definitely looking forward to. You expect Halls to take care of business?
Oh, yeah, man. Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure.
Fight, I really don't know who to pick. Shabazian was undefeated for a long time. Now he's dropped 2 in a row. Fighting against Imavov, who's been on his way up. That's going to be a fun banger. Ian Gary, undefeated, putting his record on the line against Jordan Williams, who's always tough. Jan Vellante going against Chris Barnett. Your boy Dustin Jacoby stepping in on 5 days' notice to face John Allen. That should be fun. Melsik Bagdasaryan versus Bruno Silva. Souza, I'm sorry. The battle of the one-loss fighters. And then Carlos Vergara versus Osborne, another fight. Osborne, very, very tough. Any other fights kind of stick out on that card that you're looking forward to?
And I mean, you already mentioned it. You're saying, the Dustin Jacoby fight. Saying, stepping in 5 days notice. Let's see how he goes. And like I said, the Phil Hawes fight. I think Phil Hawes could have beat him the last time when Curtis did step up, but he wanted to be well prepared. And now that I think he is well prepared, I think he's going to run through him. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that Shabazi and Imavov fight only because it's one of those fights you look at it on a card and you just don't know who's going to win. Like, I'm just totally like, is it the undefeated Shabazian that we see back finally after a couple losses? Is it Imavov who's coming up? So that's a very, very fun matchup. Obviously, the Ian Kenta Bobby Green matchup is going to be just pure entertainment. So that's going to be a fun fight. Great night of cards. Another great fight week coming at you with multiple title fights, both in Bellator and in the UFC. Fun stuff. Real quick before we get out of here, just a reminder, on November 20th, check out Brandon and UWA Elite. I'll be tuning in for that one. Or will I be backstage? You never really know. I just want Brandon to keep it in the thoughts, just in his mind. I'm in there. Right. If you hear the words, oh my God, it's probably because I showed up. UWA, don't be afraid to call me. Also, December 11th, finally back doing what the man does best, professional assassin, a.k.a. professional kickboxer, Brandon Cuttino, back in action December 11th. Just another victim to get chin checked. I should really be his hype man. He should put me on the payroll. Just saying, throwing it out there. Another job. I mean, I already got like 18 jobs as far as this network and everything else goes. What's one more? I got it. I got time. I don't have any time, but I'll make time. Anyway, check out all that. Of course, fightersfirst.shop. Rep the gear. We'll try to get the Instagram fixed up as soon as possible. But that, as anybody knows who's ever fought with Facebook or any of that stuff, is up in the cloud and beyond any of our control. So hopefully I have an email waiting for me after this episode and everything get back. But if not, follow I'll put the link in the description because I know it's a lot for people to remember, at Luchadores Primera. That means Fighters First in Espanol. Decided to be funny, make a ghost account. Of course, obviously piggybacking on the whole Day of the Dead thing going on this week, Dia de los Muertos. So always remember your loved ones and the ones lost. Brandon, any final thoughts this week?
No, man. Hey, guys, just please, if you can, like, subscribe. Please tell more people about the show. Tell more people about the network. And, yeah, like Mike said, man, go to the website. Get your Tune Up Crew merch there. That's the only place to get it. We got tank tops. We got hoodies. We got shirts for you. Like I said, I would love it. Like I said, if you guys can just rock the merch. When you guys do get the merch, share it on social media. That way we spread the word. We can just keep growing the community that way.
And show up in Allentown rocking that merch, rocking that mechanic merch. We'll definitely try to get as much as that out before December 11th. Keep pushing that. Check out social media. Check us out. Follow us, obviously, right here on YouTube, Fighters First Network. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. This is Art of MMA. We're out.